world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Lower East Side here in the city, powered by the East Side Community Network and sponsored by none other than the Ford Foundation, now a content partner to the new bridgedetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens-Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people on the East Side of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We drop a new episode every week, so make sure you turn on those notifications. So all February long, we are taking the time to honor Black history with Detroit roots. This episode, we are diving deep into the sound that is Motown, better known as Motown sound, heard all over the world. Here to help us remember is Allen Rawls, CEO of the Motown Museum, and Jawan M. Jackson, Tony and Grammy Award nominee and star of the Broadway smash, Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations, playing the role of Melvin Franklin. Allen and Jawan, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thanks for having us, and me too as well.
Thank you. And I'm going to feel bad because I can't replicate that wonderful deep bass voice. But I do have a slight correction. I was interim CEO for 3 years. I'm still on the board of trustees, but my primary responsibility these days is for the preservation of Hitsville, USA, and the expansion. I'm an architect by profession, so and I worked many years in Detroit economic development. So that's the contribution I'm making these days, as well as kind of the Motown's in-house historian, since I was lucky enough to be growing up as a teenager when Motown was getting started back in the 60s.
All right. Well, your work for economic development in Detroit, that's a whole nother story. So we may need to get you back here to talk about economic development in our city. I run a community development corporation, which Orlando used to work at until about a year ago. He changed his mind and moved on to better things. So we are very immersed in economic development.
It's super cool. And I'm really excited to have you both on to talk about all things Motown. There's so much history that we're going to dive into. But first of all, happy Black History Month, everybody. And, there's a lot going on in the world. But I want to ask you both, what does this month mean to you? Are you doing anything special, reading anything, watching anything? How are you recognizing and reserving Black History Month this year?
Oh, well, I guess for me, I've been really just highlighting my Black-owned business owner friends, making sure they get a spotlight and a platform. And I've been doing that, all year, but I'm kicking it up even more this month for my people. And, just protecting my energy when it comes to all this stuff that's happening on in the world with impeachments and stuff going on, insurrections and all this stuff. I'm just, trying to make sure that I'm reminding people about our Black people and our Black folks who created all these things that we use and that we, know and love today that aren't getting their credit. And more specifically, as it pertains to my field, highlighting, the Black artists that came before me, and showing the difference and the major, like, miles and miles of difference between Black artists who have won awards versus the white counterparts, and trying to change the narrative in theater in itself as it pertains to the Black entertainers and colored entertainers.
I love it. Allen, how about you?
Well, for me, I kind of celebrate Black history all year long, although February is always special. And I guess the start of that for two things. Number one, my family roots. My grandfather was part of a group of entrepreneurs who started Detroit Memorial Park Cemetery in Warren, Michigan, which is the oldest Black continuously operating corporation in the state of Michigan. And so folks like Haley Bell, who started WCHB, were part of that group. Reverend, I'm forgetting his name, who was pastor of Second Baptist Church for quite a while. A little later on, Dr. Charles Wright from the Charles Wright African American Museum was a very close member of our group. So I'm constantly steeped in that, and we tend to celebrate that that legacy all year long on things that we do. In addition to that, on a personal level, what I've found new this year, some of the specials that have come out that are on like Netflix and Amazon gave some amazing additional insight into things that were going on, especially in the entertainment field. I'm sure y'all have seen One Night in Miami.
Yeah, amazing piece of art.
Yeah, that was an amazing piece of film, and for some reason, although I almost idolized all of those characters, Sam Cooke for some reason really struck a note with me, because I guess because of his musical talent and how he was kind of the precursor of Marvin Gaye and some of the other Motown acts. What he did in terms of owning his own masters, promoting other groups, like Bobby Womack, like Lou Rawls, who's my cousin. Those folks have a real impact on the legacy of African American music, and there's a couple of other Sam Cooke specials that I've seen since then that really just kind of give a sense of not just his business acumen, but his artistry, which is absolutely superb.
Yeah, and Leslie Odom did.
Song I love better than A Change Is Gonna Come.
Right? The
song
of movement.
just it's not just like the meaning, it's so beautiful, and at the same time so meaningful that it makes you almost cry when you hear it, and so when I saw the origins of that song and just understood how he was really getting the confidence to put his message in his music.
For me, I feel like, like you said, Alan, just watching, I didn't know the story, the connection between all of them at the end, and seeing how, Sam lost his life right before Malcolm, and just how close that was in proximity. It was just a very interesting and very beautifully filmed, directed play by Regina King and everybody. And I had Leslie Odom Jr., he's a friend of mine. And so I just watched, just watching him do that role, it was just magnificent.
And his execution of that song, Jawan.
I literally texted him, I said, bro, this is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Leslie is just, he can do no wrong. He can do whatever he wants. He's so good. He's so good. Talk about Black history. He is Black history. Like that is, the man's been working, and he's just the salt of the earth.
Well, you and Alan are Black history as well, but we'll get into that a little later on in the show. But it's time for fresh, off the press news that we are thinking about. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Donna, fresh off the press.
COVID-19 is draining Detroit's biggest source of funding, income tax. And this is by Louis Aguilar reporting for Bridge Detroit, your newspaper, Orlando.
Yeah.
This was a really not surprising, but disappointing in so many ways. First of all, learning that employers are not required to collect income tax for their employees, Detroit-based employers, for their employees who work at home. Number two, all these jobs were created, but when the pandemic hit, all of these people that supposedly live in Detroit, many of whom still live here, are claiming their parents' address, so they can get the car insurance rates or whatever. And so they are not counting Detroit as home, or maybe they're not staying here. And when you look at the amount of investment the city places in downtown development, and then you look at how fragile that investment is when the workers don't have to claim this as home and don't have to pay into the tax base, it really just speaks to a need for tax reform. And the Michigan Municipal League and Detroit are really working together on what that tax reform might look like. I'm excited about that. Some of you may know that I've been advocating for an entertainment tax to help recoup some of the investment we've put downtown that we cannot recapture because of the Downtown Development Authority and the tax increment finance rules, which say that any increases in property tax must be captured downtown and spent only in the downtown area. But people like me and people like you, if you live in the city of Detroit, are paying taxes and paying into the funds that are used to protect those areas, whether it's our police or fire services. And so it's a wake-up call, I think. It's tragic, it's a wake-up call. And I think that finally the city is understanding and beginning to work with other communities about really recouping its income. But let's demand that if you live in Detroit, you say you live here, you're in an apartment here, you're living in a house here, that you claim that as your residence and you don't get away with pretending like you're not here when it's time to pay up, but then claiming this is your home when it's Detroit versus everybody.
Well, you know what, Donna?
Say that, Donna. Say that.
Donna, you know, this issue is so layered. I think that they are estimating what about a $170 million shortfall. But I also want to link, you know, the NEPA reform in other areas beyond taxes that contribute to why people do not claim Detroit as home. In we could talk about high automotive insurance rates. That's somebody's phone. We meant to tell everybody to turn their phones off. That's probably Jawan. I'll get him later. But high property, not property, automotive insurance rates, which is a big factor in why people don't claim Detroit as home. But also, it speaks to the need for Detroit politicians at city council and in the mayoral seat to have a legislative policy agenda for Lansing. These are issues that are not going to be solved at the local level. We have to go to the state house and demand for policy that is advantageous and beneficial toward the bottom line for the city of Detroit.
And you know what? This is an election year, and I'm going to remind every single one of them of that this year. The other thing I just want to point out briefly is there is not a single apartment building that has been built since in the past 5 years that has not been subsidized by taxpayers in this city. Absolutely. Every single new development has been subsidized. So if you're living in subsidized housing, I expect you to claim this as your resident. And if taxpayers subsidize your housing, even if you're paying $2,000 a month, I help pay for that. And I want my money back.
Yeah.
Orlando?
I was going to say the other thing too is that, you know, there are folks who are fortunate like you and I to be able to work from home. But at one point, the city estimated more than 50,000 Detroit-based workers lost their jobs. And so there's no income tax due to the stay-at-home piece, but also people are still out of work. And I don't know what that number looks like currently, but there is still a vast amount of people in the city of Detroit who who's not working right now. And so our thoughts are with it.
Our thoughts and prayers are to them. But I do want to point out that if you live and work in the city, you have to have your taxes paid. The employer is required to take your taxes out. It is only if you're working at home and live in the city, you pay taxes. If you are working from home and you're employed by somebody in the city and you say you don't live here, that's when you don't have taxes taken out. So there's also a disparity there that Detroiters who work from home are still having to pay Detroit income taxes.
Yeah. Fresh off the press, lack of Black neighbors in Detroit's Island View rentals leads to Fair Housing Act lawsuit. This is Nusrat Rahman reporting for Breach Detroit in partnership with the Detroit Free Press. So this is a relatively interesting story because as Island View is a strategic neighborhood targeted for investment, and it has seen its fair share of displacement and gentrification. Island View, for the most part, and I'm now a resident of Island View, is still very much a majority Black neighborhood. But there is some developments there where 3 tenants have brought up a lawsuit, and they're all non-Black. 2 white folks and an Asian tenant brought up a lawsuit against their developers for violating the Fair Housing Act. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but there is a clause in the Fair Housing Act that says one cannot deny a person the opportunity to live in a racially and culturally diverse neighborhood and or complex, right? So these are two white folks and an Asian American person bringing this Fair Housing Act lawsuit up. And so one of the interesting things around how this came up, guys, is that last year, near the summertime, the tenants decided that they were going to meet to see how they can support each other through COVID, right? And so all of the tenants meet, and there are no Black people at this tenant meeting in Island View on the east side near Belle Isle, okay? On the east side of Detroit, there are no Black people. And that began to ring alarms in the heads of the plaintiffs. So they brought up this lawsuit, and I think it still may be in the discovery phase, but we're going to see where this lawsuit goes. For me, it is the definition of what we Black folk have been calling our woke white friends to do, which is, hey, get your people, number one. Number two, the defense released a statement, and Donna, I really want to hear your response to this. There's no way that we have denied Black tenants, the right to live here. In fact, 20% of our tenants are actually, African American. But beyond that, the person who does our day-to-day tours and operations is a Black person. And I'm just like, we're not racist because we got that one Black friend that gives us our credence. And so this lawsuit is ongoing. The burden of proof, of course, is on the tenants in this case. There is precedent for white folks bringing up Fair Housing Act lawsuits in the 1970s out in California that was settled. And I'm sure they're going to cite that case. But is this what it takes? Do we need white folks, our white friends, bringing up these kinds of lawsuits to make sure that we continue to live and thrive in equitable cities?
I mean, we're not going to have equity if you're paying $2,500 a month to live in Island View, because your average Black person is not going to do that. Okay, so let's be really clear here. Part of it is the economic issue of rents too high, location undesirable for a Black person. Because when we spend $2,500 a month, we're going to live somewhere. I'm not sure what the rents are, but I'm just saying that in a lot of instances, you're building these expensive units in these places where we look at the world a little differently than a lot of these young white people who want to pioneer and go places in Detroit, say, oh, I live in the city, and that's really cool. We're looking for more, a lot of instances. So I think part of it is priced out. And I think a big part of it, once again, goes to policy, because when you have all of the units being built at a certain level, now, most of the time they're saying set aside 20% of the units.
And that's what they did.
For people who make 80% or less of the AMI. The area median income is about $60,000. It might be higher now. So the 80% is $44,000. The Detroit median income is $27,000. So you have to look at the fact that 80% of the area median income outprices the average Detroiter. And then look at the units that a lot of times these developments are making available to people at that area, at that income level. A lot of times you can rent a studio apartment for $1,000 a month. Now, I'm not saying that that's not reasonable, but I'm just saying that if I had to spend $1,000 a month, I would not necessarily spend it on a studio apartment if I were wanting it in Island View. You see what I'm saying? It's like all of these factors together that don't add up. And so I'm not sure if there is racist intent or the policy, the racism is baked into a policy decision that this is how we're going to do housing in our community. And some of us actually fought. Remember when the Charlevoix Villages was really fighting the city's plans for making that a target neighborhood, and demanded that the city set aside actually affordable housing for low-income folks. And the city said, "Oh no, that's not feasible." They actually paid somebody for a report to come in and say that inclusionary housing was not feasible in the city of Detroit. But at the same time, once again, Detroiters are subsidizing the development of all of these units, including this one. So I think if they're going to sue anybody, they need to add the city of Detroit, which subsidizes development, to the list of people they're suing, because our policies need to change.
So yes, there is a 20% set aside in these developments, and the defendant is Village Association, but it's all of three companies. And what's funny is, you're supposed to have that 20% set aside for affordable units, and the defendants are citing that 20% of the residents are Black. So it's just a crazy coincidence. And I'm not saying that all of the Black residents are in affordable units, but this is something I think that Villages Property Tenants Union is the plaintiff in this case, and it's in the U.S. Eastern District Court of Michigan. And so hopefully this goes on, and we'll keep our eye on this, but this has, implications for if it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court for the entire country, if it's not settled out of court. So this is something that we'll be keeping a close eye on. And I think it is time for our woke white brothers and sisters to challenge policy in this way if they want to be a part of, equitable cities and racial justice. So that's funny. That wraps up our Fresh Off the Press segment. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Allen and Jawan, our special guests for today's episode. We are so excited to talk about all things Motown. I mean, we're here in Detroit. Jawan, you grew up in Detroit. I mean, we can't wait. But Allen, we want to ask you and first mention, that last week Mary Wilson passed away, one of the iconic founders of the Supremes. Just how is the museum, how is Hitsville remembering her legacy in the wake of her death right now?
Well, the museum currently is closed as a result of COVID, but I believe we're going to reopen on Thursday. Okay, and that's been in the works for a while, but we make sure, because we have a relationship with Henry Ford Hospital, they had kind of advised us as to when is a prudent time to open our doors again. So I believe Thursday is the day for that. What we've been doing in lieu of having an actual exhibit or anything is we've used social media in cooperation with ourselves and with Motown Records and other sites that are allied to us to celebrate Mary's legacy. If you go to our website or if you go to our Facebook or Instagram, you'll see posts that talk about Mary. There's one that I like particularly that had her in one of her Supremes gowns during the 60s, and it simply says, "Our world is empty without you." So that's certainly true. And we treasure all of our alumni, and we're very sad when any of them leave us. It was quite a surprise for Mary to leave so suddenly. So we're still kind of, processing that as well, because I think it's been a week now.
Yeah.
Jawan, so like everything else, I've got a Mary story. You want me to tell it now or later?
Yes, now.
Yeah.
Okay. 15 years old, okay? Just still in junior high school. Supremes really start to get successful, and they all buy houses on West Buena Vista, which is right around the corner from where I was growing up. So being, Motown groupies, we immediately gravitated to that street, and somehow we became more friendly with Mary than Diana or Flo. Not that we didn't want to, but Mary just seemed to be a little bit more accessible. She was gracious enough to let us into her home numerous times. And it was just amazing for young kids like that to be in the presence of superstars and to see how they lived as regular people. And so many years later, here I am at Motown, working there on a daily basis, and Mary comes to town at Motor City Soundboard, and so she's conducting an interview, and I happen to be there, and I remind her of all of these things that went on when I was a teenager, and she was a budding superstar, and it was kind of funny for her to say, "Oh, you remember this person? Oh, you remember this episode?" So, and some of it I can't talk about, but but
the journalist in me would try to pull that out of you. Like, I want to.
I'll put it like this: Mary was very popular with a certain member of one of the other superstar groups.
Well, so let me,
that's it. That's all you're gonna get out of me.
Well, listen, one of the things that you mentioned is that they lived around the corner from you. And I think, what an amazing part of community where there was a time where Black folks got to live in proximity to their heroes. The Supremes lived in the Russell Woods neighborhood. Jawan, yeah. I know that you had the opportunity to meet Mary Wilson. In fact, I heard you two were pretty cozy because I'll go ahead and out the rumor. The rumor was that she was dating Melvin Franklin. But you and her got cozy. Tell us that story, Jawan.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of getting to know Mary for the last 8 years. And when I made my Broadway debut on Motown the Musical, I met her there and we got cool. And then the past 3 years, that's when we got closer because of my role in Ain't Too Proud. And so, we were like, because I'm also like super, super, super close to Claudette Robertson, they were like really, really cool. They both called me their boyfriend. And so I remember opening night specifically though, she came up to me, she was like, Melvin and I never dated. I just want to let that be known. We never dated, but he was my best friend. And it's I understand how stories go, but then she says, but you fine, so I don't mind dating you in real life too, if you want. And so she was my girlfriend, so we were dating. That's the rumor. So we were dating. But no, she's just a joy. Anytime I've ever been around Mary at any event, whether it be in New York, in LA, and Detroit, she's always been kind. She's always kept it real. And she's not ever held her tongue, not one moment I've ever been around her. And so that's what I love about all of those Motown people. They will not hold their tongue about anything that they got to say. And I think that's a testament because Barry Gordy is the exact same way. As old as he is, he'll just say things. He'll be like, Barry, you can't say that. He's like, yes, I can. And I will. Did. So, but Mary Wilson, I'm going to miss her dearly. She's definitely had a place in my heart.
So when speaking of Broadway, I remember when Dreamgirls came out. And that was believed at the time to fictionalize the Supremes or the relationship between the Supremes. To what extent is that a true depiction? And to what extent was that sort of, unfair to the treatment of all of the members of the group?
And the name of Mary's memoir was Dreamgirls, Life of a Supreme or something like that, right? Any info on that, guys? I
don't know if you guys are familiar with the app Clubhouse.
So
it's just basically, so Shirley Ralph, we got her to join Clubhouse, and I'm really, really close friends with her son Etienne. And so we had like this Dream Girls. She had, I think it was like her 35th anniversary of making her Broadway debut on Dream Girls or something like that. So we had this big old celebration about it and for her. And she actually, put it to rest. She was like, it was not about the Supremes, but it could be, loosely based. It's kind of like how the Five Heartbeats and the Temptations, you would think
Right.
is, you know, the same thing almost, like, but she, you know, she put it to rest. But she did, you know, she was telling the story about like the Diana Ross and her situation and how, you know, that was a whole thing for a minute, and then, but she was like, it was not about the Supreme. She's like, people wanted it to seem like it was, but it was not. So she let it
to rest.
Jawan,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think the best portrayal of that is in Motown the musical. I mean, you see some elements of it. You know, in life, you know, people fall in and out of friendships, and they have conflicts. But like Barry says at the end, the love overcomes the competition.
Yeah.
So I think that the guys who created Dreamgirls may have taken some artistic liberties and kind of used the Supremes as the basis, and Barry as the basis of it, but then took it and made it, you know, a fictionalized account.
Yeah. Alan, tell us about, you know, the history that's living and breathing, that is the Motown Museum, the original Hitsville headquarters. And we know and have read about the museum expanding. How is everything going? Have you guys raised all of the money? Like, what's next for the museum?
Well, we have not raised all the money yet, but we are well on our way to doing so. I don't want to quote a figure. I'll let our CEO, Robin Terry, put that out there in press releases as we approach our goal. But we've made a significant amount of progress. We recently completed an expansion, a smaller expansion to the museum, which is called Hitsville Next. It's our educational and entrepreneur center. And if any of you all have been to Motown, you'll recall there's Hitsville, USA, and the museum, which are the two buildings furthest to the west. Then just a little bit farther east or to the left, if you're looking at the front door, there's three other houses that we talk about a lot. And so those have been the administrative offices for the museum for quite a long time. And we renovated those completely and built an addition. And that's now, as I said, our educational and entrepreneur center. And what it's intended to do is give kids a place, and young adults too, a place to explore their talents and nurture and grow it under mentorship of Motown folks and other people that we bring in as well. So we have a number of programs throughout the year, like Motown Mike, which is our spoken word program, where we have poets and rappers and orators compete. We have a singing competition as well. We have summer camps from elementary through high school. So we'll use that space to continue to provide that kind of outreach to help nurture our next generation of Detroit and Motown talent, as well as honoring some of the individuals who have been entrepreneurs in the city of Detroit and have helped guide the way. Obviously, Mr. Gordon would be one of them. Another one that many of you may be aware of is Dr. Bill Picard. He is an industrialist. He's owned many restaurant franchises, such as McDonald's. He's the owner of Real Times Media that owns the Michigan Chronicle and several other African-American newspapers. So it's folks like that that not only have contributed financially to Motown, but have contributed their time and their expertise to help nurture the next generation of talent. So I can't wait for us to be able to open that up. Let's get COVID in the rearview mirror.
Yes,
so
COVID be gone.
So that we can continue to enjoy life fully again. And I'd love to see you all come down and maybe do a show from there.
Oh, we would love that.
We would
That would
love
be great.
that. Yeah, that would be absolutely wonderful. So we look forward to that. I have a question though. I was in the early 2000s, my late friend Tanya Heidelberg Yap was planning for a new Motown museum that was going to be on Woodward near was it I-75,
575, yes.
and where LCA is now located.
Yes.
Can you tell me about what happened there and what the difference is between this expansion and the expansion that Tanya was overseeing?
Sure. So that was known as Motown Center. That was a development for the building that was Motown's office building, also known as the Donovan Building, or Motown's. It was Motown's headquarters after we outgrew all the properties on the boulevard. Okay. So Mr. Gordy and a team of developers, encouraged by Mayor Archer, I believe, at the time, convinced them to invest some money to try to develop that property as kind of a mixed-use development, which would have been office, hotel, some retail, and a portion of it would have been a Motown experience that would have been a supplement to the Motown Museum. It was not going to be another Motown Museum or a replica of what we have there on the boulevard. We believe our roots are at 2648 West Grand Boulevard in the heart of the community, and that's where we intend for it to always stay. But that's not to say we can't find places to celebrate it elsewhere in the city. And so that's what that project was about. And like anything else, developers have big ideas, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
The money was really tight in those days.
In this case,
It's hard to raise money. It's a little looser right now from foundations, isn't it?
I'm sorry.
The money seems like it's a little looser from foundations and corporations now than it was in the early 2000s. That was a real difficult time to raise funds.
Yeah, and so that project was meant to be a purely economic for-profit deal. There wasn't really any foundation money in there. And I think just because the economics weren't there, development really hadn't come far enough up Woodward Avenue. You got to remember, this was even before, what was Carmanos? What was the name of Carmanos's company? CompuWare hadn't even been built yet.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, I can't recall if both of the stadiums had been completed yet.
I think it was just the America Park. And
Yeah.
Gary Torgo was at the center of that. Now he's with Huntington Bank, right?
Yeah,
So,
right.
We had a whole different group.
Yeah.
So it was just, I think from an economic development standpoint, the area just wasn't ripe for development yet. And to be honest, if it hadn't been for somebody with super deep pockets like the Illiches, that corner would still be undeveloped.
Some of our tax money too.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Some of that corner is still undeveloped.
I can argue with that statement. Yeah.
So, before we went on air, we heard a bit of your story, Jawan. You've played Melvin Franklin twice, but the story of how you got to New York on Broadway before all of the award nominations is fascinating. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I auditioned in Detroit before I even booked Motown, the musical. And what's interesting about that is I found the ad for it in the newspaper. It was in the classified section, and 2 auditions in, my first audition was at Marvin Winans Academy, and then the second one I sent in the tape. And I think actually, Orlando, you may have helped me at some point do that tape, because we were in I had just graduated college, and
I'm trying to remember.
And then, it was so much we were doing that around that time. And then my third audition brought me to the Motown Museum, and I had never been, and that was the very first time I had stepped foot in the Motown Museum, and that's when I auditioned for this show, and that's what ended up ultimately getting me booked to where I am and who I am today. And it was honestly because of people like Allen and Terry and everybody from the Motown Museum. They rooted for me and championed me, and they held me up. So I was like a fish out of water because I was straight out from Detroit, moved to New York, didn't know anything about the city, but they would come, and I remember when they would fly in, they always made sure they saw me, loved on me, made sure they always encouraged me and allowed me to, to grow, but know that they had my back. And so I'm appreciative, and I'm glad I can actually say this now, Alan, after all these years. Thank you so much for just your love and your support, for helping me get along my journey as an actor and a singer and a performer, because it was people like you and everybody at the Motown company that helped me be the artist I am today. So thank you.
Wow.
Oh, you're welcome. And let me tell you, I have to tell you about this one story. One of the most gratifying things I was able to do was when Motown was first on Broadway, we had a group of kids from Cass, Detroit School of Performing Arts, Renaissance, and one other school come to the museum one day. They were a choral, I guess a citywide choral group. They came and just toured the museum and sang in the echo chamber. And Robin was there watching it, and she said, "My grandmother is telling me that these young people need to see the musical. We need to find a way to get them to New York." So we worked with Detroit Public Schools. We rented a bus. We took the kids to New York. They got a chance to see Times Square, which I'm sure hardly any of them had seen before. Got front row seats to Motown the musical. And afterward, the cast came and met with them, because these were performing arts students. And so they were getting a chance to see where they could be in the future. And Jawan was part of that. In fact, I remember him coming out and saying, "Hey, I heard Detroit's in the house." And the kids went wild. And so I just love to see performers like yourself give back and give encouragement to our next generation of artists.
Yeah, I think that's very important, man. Like, that's one of my platforms as an artist is arts and education, and making sure that I can give what was given back to me. And so I would do that as long as I'm breathing.
Jawan, talk about this voice. Like, in college, all the girls were fascinated with Jawan because of this voice. We actually did a production together. And you were the voice of the production. Where did this voice come from?
It come from my grandfather, but I've had it since I was 12 years old. Wow. And it's, it was one of those things, I feel like now it's a blessing. But at first, for me, it was just the ugliest thing. I hated it. I hated the sound of it, because before I couldn't sing, I was singing the Tevin Campbells, and I was hitting the high notes from Sister Act and doing all of that. And now I'm like, I can't do none of that. So it was actually my choir director from church. I grew up in my home church is Great New Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church, with Kenneth James Flowers is my pastor. And it was my choir director who really just cultivated my gift and like worked with me and had me. It's like, you got all this low. Everybody singing high. I want you to sing here and stay here. Let's work on that, because that's gonna make you unique and stand out. And I've been using it ever since. And I like the response from it that I got from it. I was like, okay, cool. We're gonna make it work and make some shake with it. And years later, it has paid off, and I am so grateful for it.
Allen, can you talk a little bit about the sound that still reverberates around the world? And, what is it about that sound that resonated with so many people? I had the opportunity in late 2019 to travel all across Europe, country to country. And I don't care if I was in a coffee shop, I don't care if I was in a hotel, wherever, Detroit was in the house. And it made me proud as a creator. Talk about that sound and the magic that it was.
I'd love to, but I just want to say one thing first. Jawan has this unique bass voice, and he's part of a legacy of rich bass voices that go back to Paul Robeson and William Warfield and other great baritones or basses that are part of the African American spirit experience. So when you think about Melvin singing Old Man River, I think about William Warfield singing Old Man River from Porgy and Bess.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a direct link that tree is growing another branch. Okay, now Motown around the world. So what was unique about the sound? Where do I start? Well, first of all, the voices. I mean, every voice that you can think of a Motown artist as a signature voice. Marvin, Diana, Levi.
Come on.
I can stop right there.
You can stop right there. Levi was.
I can stop right there. Barry Gordy said, a voice like Levi Stubbs doesn't come along every once in a while. It only comes along once. I mean, a voice like that. Okay, Smokey. Light, airy voice, unmistakable. David Ruffin.
Yes.
Eddie Kendrick.
That voice. Man.
Paul Williams, the forgotten voice of the Temptations. Paul Williams had a voice that was so smooth,
so distinct,
that and so evocative that it just takes my breath away. Yeah. So the voices, I think, were one of the things that made Motown so special. And then, of course, the music. The songs that Holland Dozier Howland, that Smokey, that Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong and Barry wrote were unique. I mean, they bridged what was a Chuck Berry, Little Richard sound, and brought it into a new level of polish and sophistication. I mean, those early rock and rollers were great, and everybody has their own place in music history. I think Motown's contribution was, among other things, giving that kind of what was considered to be sophistication and polish that was part of what African Americans were striving for in the 60s, to be a little slicker and a little bit more refined as we were promoting ourselves with integration. And then, of course, I can't forget the Funk Brothers. I mean, I'm proud that I know a number of them. In fact, when I talk about the teenage years, I used to hang out at this little recording studio between my own personal auditions for Motown, and Pistol used to moonlight there. Johnny Griffith used to moonlight there. Golden World, where they all moonlighted, was a couple of blocks from where I lived. Eli Fontaine, who played the sax on What's Going On and so many other records, he lived 2 doors down from me. So all of the Funk Brothers and the Funk Brothers Extended, they created a foundation that had that unmistakable sound, that unmistakable beat, that unmistakable bounce, that was, something that everybody liked. It wasn't purely a Black sound. Black people were bringing it to the public and providing it that soul, that unique quality that made it desirable for everybody. But it became accessible, universal music that everybody around the world loved.
Well, I think of Motown as Black excellence, because you couldn't just show up with a good voice. You had to hit every note the right way. You had to dress the right way, carry yourself the right way. They were polished and groomed. it seems as though there was such a high standard of what Blackness was going to be presented out of the city of Detroit that also kind of brings me pride. There is not a single picture of any of the Motown stars where they are not just looking amazing.
Oh, they
They
move with it.
style, like Detroit has style, and you just saw it in that. How important was that to the overall sales of the music, do you think?
I think it was tremendous. First of all, it gave them accessibility to national television audience like Ed Sullivan's show and Dick Clark and that sort of thing. But it also, showed us in a light that allowed us to become more acceptable to the country writ large.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think also too, for me, just even, that era, like when working with Barry in Motown, the musical, he was very intricate in the process, the creative process and all of it. And Barry, like you said, he didn't understand the concept of this is a musical, and when you come, you put it up, and then whatever you did on opening night, that's the show that you give every day, and you don't do anything else, and it's locked. Barry said, no. So I had a unique experience with Motown the musical, unlike any other Broadway show I've ever been on, because Barry, when he says, why didn't you do this riff there? Or why aren't you doing this? And so we was like, well, Barry, we couldn't. He was like, no, come sing your face off. We want the people to feel good. We want people leaving here feeling good and having an experience. And so with Barry's permission, you can imagine, because as performers, we want the ability just to be free and just go for it. And Barry would come and it was like, just go, give it all you got. And when we get notes, and be like, Barry, well, our music director, he was like, I'll talk to him. He was like, let them do what they want to do, So it was that feeling, where we got to have the lessons behind the Charlie Atkins and the charm schools of, the Motown back in the days, where they were having these, just etiquette courses on how to be an overall artist and performer. And I think that I took on a lot of that, because I was like, wow, like they were actually preparing, these artists for the world to present themselves. So nowadays you don't see that. You see these artists now who are just raw, and they all exposed, and there's a piece of like people like feeling like, oh, I need to, it makes it seem real, but these artists were polished, and I like to see clean, like our colored people just clean, represented well. That's what Barry.
And thank goodness Instagram did not exist back then, and Twitter destroyed all your illusions. You have to see the real person. I don't want that. I want my fantasies. Okay, she's great. She could be my best friend. I don't want to know her attitudes, opinions, or mistakes. And that was the thing. There was this image that gave people something to look up to, that Instagram has just destroyed.
Yeah.
Now that you have, some little known family history and ties to the Temptations, what say you? What is it? Tell us about that.
It's the craziest thing. So, I did not know this. My father passed away in 2012. And as you get older, you start researching things about your family history. And so one time I just looked him up, Donovan H. Givens. And these stories came back, a couple of stories, and I found out that he was the Temptations doctor.
Wow.
Now, speaking of not dropping names, let's think about this, right? I'm a little girl, and the Temptations are your patients, and I'm not going to meet them. I don't have anything autographed. I don't have anything. So I don't know why he kept it secret. I actually worked in his office when I was in high school, but I suppose they weren't there at that time. But anyway, that was just kind of interesting to me, the connection. First of all, just the connection to Detroit. Because you think of them being bigger than life, but they were here in this community, and their doctor, at least at some point in 1968, their doctor was my father.
Yeah, this is the way that I'm connected through this, and we're all connected in Motown, this Motown history. Melvin dated my cousin when they were in high school, and I found that later.
Are you serious?
I'm like, why didn't you tell me this when I did the show? Why is this now coming out? You know, and so it's just the connection. I didn't know like how connected we are, and how, you know, like you said, Orlando, when you go and you're traveling the world and you're hearing a Motown song being played on another part of the darn world, it's, you know, it's just very interesting, the machine that Berry Gordy created, and the legacy of this company and the people that are a part of it. It's great.
Last question, because I know we got to wrap up. From each of your perspectives, I would love to hear from you on what you think is, you know, would be the enduring legacy of Motown. Jawan, we'll start with you.
Oh, wow. Okay, no pressure. I think the enduring legacy of Motown would have to be the music that they left us, and just the way that these artists came out, and they're just now urban, not even urban legends anymore. They're just legends, and it's being told for generation and generation and generation and generation. I think that's what it is for me.
I love it. Allen?
I would agree with everything Jawan says, and in addition to that, Motown left a template for success for other Black or music entrepreneurs, period. But certainly these days, when you hear folks like Dr. Dre or Babyface in LA or Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, talk about who were their models in terms of what they wanted to do in terms of creating a vehicle to launch their own success and the success of people that they discovered. They always point to Barry as the model for that. And so I have to give him credit from the business world of music, which can be just as ruthless as the performing side, in creating something that's sustainable. And the label is still around today.
I absolutely love it. Listen, if you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Authentically Detroit, or email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Just a few shout outs. Allen, you got some shout outs? Oh, he got records.
Yes, I would have gotten my vinyl out, but I couldn't find it in time. But when you talk about the Temptations, you got to have a little discography here.
That's it.
And this is the Temptations in their absolute prime, right here. Temptations. Since I Lost My Baby, and this is the guys, the way they looked in 1964. And if you want to ever have a live album of the Temptations in their prime, Temptations live, recorded in Detroit, by the way, at the Rooster Tail.
So my grandmother gifted me this David Ruffin compilation record on vinyl. Look at how sharp Ruffin was, man.
Could tell them nothing.
You could tell them nothing. I want to be like Ruffin. I do. I want to be like Ruffin, man.
Could we see pictures of you, Jawan? Two things I want. One, I want to see you in costume, and two, I want to hear you. Where can somebody listen to you?
Oh, well, I have a website that you can go to.
Okay.
JawanMJackson.com. But you can also go to ain'ttooproudmusical.com. There are videos. YouTube.
I have the soundtrack I can send you, Donna.
Yeah, the soundtrack's on iTunes, the album, the whole album. So it kind of gives you, if you have not seen the show, the soundtrack gives you a scope of what the show is audio wise. And I think it's, brilliant. It garnered me my first Grammy nomination. So I like it.
Got a Grammy nod.
Somebody liked it. So you can check those out.
Oh man, and you don't want to know the cool thing about this interview that I think personifies these legends, especially the legends that are still alive, is that their affinity and connection to home. Right, Jawan is a Tony Award nominee, Grammy nominee, but he still comes home. He still answers the phone when I call. Mary Wilson still would come home. We see Martha Reeves comes to the East Side Extravaganza every year and dances with
Martha, yeah.
At the Rooster Tail.
At the Rooster Tail, right? There's video of me and Martha dancing, Joanna. I have to send that to you.
Listen, she will ballroom you down before I left. Right. I'm a ballroom partner. If I'd had nobody, I'm like, come on, Martha, let's dance, and that's what we do.
And so, the way that, and I don't know if this was taught or if this was just culture, the way that Motown loves on home, it really makes every Detroiter, feel good. So shout out to you guys for being guests on the show today. I want to shout out Yusuf Bunchy Shakur, who is a regular guest on Authentically Detroit. Happy birthday, Yusuf. Shout out to my friend Janelle Gary, Diversity and Inclusion Chair for PRSA Detroit, who wrote a great column on their blog today. Check it out at prsadetroit.org. Also, this Friday, I'll be facilitating the Detroit Capacity Building Forum this Friday from 9 to 12 in partnership with Michigan Community Resources and COAC. You can go to coac.org to register for that today. And Donna, I want to shout you out for holding it down last week. I was sick. I was struggling with a horrible case of food poisoning, and the show went on. One monkey don't stop no show. So Donna, you're amazing. Thank you. And I want to say thank you to Daniel Baxter, our guest last week, for the amazing shout out and tribute he gave me at the end of last week's show. Donna, you got shout outs?
I do. I want to shout out Jody Raines, and who's the Vice President of Programs at the EART Foundation, who has probably got the longest record of contributing to significant sums of money to ECN over the past 12 years. And actually, 2 years from now, we still have future funding. She has taken the position of Vice President for Programs at New Detroit Incorporated, where I sit on the board of directors. And so it's a career change for her. And it's very exciting when women my age make new career decisions. Life goes on and we still keep on taking. So congratulations to you, Jody. And thank you for the contribution she has made to the entire Detroit community. And a little bit younger, but still along these lines, Leslie Graham Andrews is now the new director for, is it strategy or something like that? I have it up here. The strategic initiatives for the Urban League, National Urban League in New York City.
Oh my God, congrats, Leslie Andrews.
Doing it for themselves. I'm so proud of all of the women. So, yeah.
Wow. Joanna, Allen, do you guys have shout outs?
Just shout out to my family back home in Detroit, always holding me down, always lifting me up and sending their prayers, and to everybody who has ever supported, tweeted, Instagrammed, Facebook, and called me from things that they've seen, from newspaper articles to TV show spots. Thank y'all. I love y'all so much.
Allen?
Yeah, and I could go on and on, but I just got to give one special shout out, and that's to my wife, Allen Rawls. Yesterday was her last day at Motown Museum. She's the curator. So she managed the collection for Motown, and she decided it was time to retire while we're still young and able to hang out and travel the world. So shout out to Corleen. I love you.
Wow, beautiful tribute. Thank y'all so much for listening. We want you to catch the wave.